Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Outlaws and Gunslingers with your host, Bang and Dang. And we are continuing on with the murdering and kidnapping and violence of
a lot of violence.
Yeah, a lot of violence and a lot of kids so far. See, these are the cases that get the most information about them, is like the kidnappings and murders.
Right.
There's hundreds of murders of random chicks usually.
Right.
That
Nobody cares.
that found on the highway and shit, but there's like, oh, well, she disappeared, was found. And that was pretty much it.
Cares enough to do a story.
Right. So, where are we at it again with another kid, this one being 5 years old, who is a Czech-American girl, victim of kidnapping and murder in the spring of 1911. That's right. We go all the way back to 1911. We bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
Her disappearance and subsequent search for her preoccupied Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota law enforcement for 6 weeks. Elsie Paroubek, otherwise known as Elsie, was born in Chicago in 1906. Her mother, Carolina Vojakova, was born November 26, 1869 in Mikov in Eastern Bohemia, Austria-Hungary, which is now the Czech Republic.
I go with it.
Elsie's father, Frank Paroubek, was a laborer born on December 15th, 1867 in Podhorany, Uranova, wherever that is. I think it's in the Czech Republic.
If any of you Czechs are listening and we're getting it wrong,
sorry.
Frank supposedly first came to the United States in 1882 at the age of 14 or 15. He returned to Podhorany area and married Carolina in her village in 1892, bringing her to America around 1895. Several close relatives also moved to Chicago with them. In the United States, Frank worked as a painter, while Carolina maintained the home, obviously. The couple left Catholicism and to become freethinkers.
Hey, freethinkers.
Good for you guys. Therefore, their children were not baptized, nor were their births apparently registered in the city. Wow.
Yeah, they were just having them at home, and
right.
That was it.
So Elsie's exact birth date is unknown.
Huh.
She was their 8th or 9th child, according to the 1900-1910 census records, having at least 3 older siblings who died prematurely.
Jeez.
Oh, jeez.
What was going on? At the time of the 1910 census, on April 21st, 1910, Elsie was said to be 3 years old. At the time of her death, she was estimated to be 4 years old, according to her gravestone, together suggesting a possible birth date between April 22nd, 1906 and April 8th, 1907.
You tell me they didn't put Czech Republicans don't put their date of births on their...
They probably don't even know.
Gravestone?
One day in April or something, maybe, right?
Right. It's like, we don't keep track of that shit.
Right.
It's American holiday.
Pretty much. In census and newspaper accounts, particularly in the Chicago Daily News, Paroubek is frequently spelled Paroubek without the U and... without the U.
Right.
Frank is sometimes referred to as Peter or John, and Carolina is sometimes called Mary. What
Oh,
the hell?
Who are these people?
Right. Elsie is also called Mary or Emily in the Rockford,
wow.
Illinois newspaper. What in the world is happening?
Oh.
Okay, so 3 different names for everybody. You get a name,
They
and
don't
you
know-
get a
right.
name.
They don't know the exact date of birthdays.
They don't know their names.
They don't know their names.
They don't know how many kids they even had.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Morning of April 8th, or so we think,
Right, who knows?
1911. Elsie left her home at 2320 South Albany Avenue in Chicago, telling her mother she was going to visit Auntie. At 4 years old, you're just
I was
going
going to say, at 4?
I guess 1911, but still, Chicago. Pretty big city, probably still. Right. She said she's going to see Auntie, Carolina's sister Julia Trempota, around the corner at 2325 South Troy Street, which we just looked on the map, and it's basically right in her backyard.
Oh, no. See? So why would she
go around?
She went 22nd Street.
Why the hell would she go to 22nd Street? It's all the way down there. Wait.
Oh, you know what?
Where's 22nd Street?
They don't have a 22nd Street. Maybe they,
I bet there was a road right in here.
Probably was, yeah. Probably right here and then right here, because it said she went left and then left again.
Right. Turning left on 22nd Street and left again on Troy, she encountered her 9-year-old cousin, Josie, and a number of other children who were listening to an organ grinder a short distance from Mrs. Trempota's gate. When the organ grinder moved to the 23rd Street corner, the children followed him, but subsequently left, while Elsie remained behind. Okay, so they went all the way up to the 23rd Street.
street performer guy,
Yeah.
just running around with a little portable organ, pretty much. Well, all right, those are the days, huh? Okay, so irresponsible parents, irresponsible cousins.
1911. So.
Yeah, but still. Several hours later, you figured this is where H.H. Holmes was roaming around, too.
It's true.
In this area. Well, years earlier, but
All
still. Several hours later, Elsie's mother went to her sister's house to find Elsie had never arrived. As Elsie had many friends in the area. She's 4 years old. What the hell is this chick?
Right.
The women assumed she was visiting at another home. These are the worst parents ever.
You ain't kidding.
Perhaps to spend the night and return the next morning. Oh, my.
Perhaps to spend the night and return next morning. Just do it. A little 4-year-old running around doing what the hell you want.
What the hell? At 9 p.m. that evening, Frank returned from work and went to the police at the Hinman Street station to report her missing. Police initially
pissed.
Probably, you stupid bitch.
What the hell you mean you don't know?
Police initially agreed that she was likely spending the night with her friends, but when she had not returned the following morning, Captain Joe Mahoney took personal charge of the search. These guys, all these people are dumb. 4 years old. What the hell was going on in 1911?
Romani people, otherwise known as Gypsies, identified by the Rockford, Illinois press,
Well, I don't know if all of them are, but
were suspected after a neighborhood child, John Jaruski, told the detectives from the Maxwell Street Station, led by Inspector Stephen K. Healy, that he has seen a gypsy wagon on Kedzie Avenue, a block west of Troy Street, with 2 women holding a little girl. The Chicago American repeated the story with the added detail that the girl seemed to be trying to get away, of course, and was being restrained. Also, that the police had no reason to believe this was a black
they had
hand
reason to
kidnapping.
believe.
Right. That the police had a reason to believe that this was a black hand kidnapping.
Black Hand, isn't that the mafia? Yeah, the mafia.
All right.
Earlier days of the mafia. So we got the mob involved in here?
Yeah.
What's going on here? There were several camps along the Des Plaines River near Kedzie, and these were searched. Residents told investigators that one wagon had decamped and left on the morning of April 9th. The quote-unquote stolen by gypsies theory gained credence because Elsie's disappearance was almost identical to that of Lillian Wolfe, who had been found with gypsies 4 years earlier.
Oh, wow.
Elsie's father, Frank, offered his life savings, which was $50.
Wow.
Which was about $1,165
Not
today.
a damn thing.
As a reward. He said, I'll give you everything. Inspector Healer also ordered that drainage canals be dragged for the child's body on April 15th, and Governor Charles S. Deenan asked the public to aid in the search. There's damn gypsies.
Right. It was about at this time that Elsie's friend Emma Kubat, 14-year-old, told police she had last seen Elsie with the organ grinder.
Wait a minute. I'm so confused. Is this girl 14 or is she 4? I don't understand.
Emma's 14.
I get it. But is it Elsie's friend, Emma?
Right, a 4-year-old. I mean, back then, dude, everybody was...
I guess, but I mean, come on. This is just weird already.
Detectives from Maxwell Street Station searched the Italian Quarter at West 14th and South Halstead Streets, where it had been reported a child answering Elsie's description had been seen with an organ grinder. A full-length photo of Elsie appeared on the front page of the April 12th Chicago American. This photo, enhanced by artists, reappeared many times in the paper. 17th of April. It was accompanied by photos of Frank, Carolina, Elsie's sister, Julia.
Detectives Joseph Camaros and Sheehan accompanied Frank in his search for the departed wagon, which was initially believed to be headed for Round Lake, Illinois, which was a village about 50 miles northwest of Chicago, where 7 wagons were camped. Farmers in the area were alerted to be on watch. When local residents started asking gypsies about Elsie and attempting to search the wagons, they broke camp again and moved on to Volo, Illinois, 43 miles away from Chicago. Volo residents reported a child matching Elsie's description and said she appeared to be stupefied or drugged and partly covered with a blanket. They also attempted to search the wagons, but the gypsies immediately broke camp and departed for McHenry, Illinois, about 60 miles northwest of Chicago. When
the police caught up with them at McHenry, they discovered the little girl was a gypsy. Did not match Elsie's description whatsoever.
So people are just seeing kids
right.
like, oh, here she is.
That's what they do, right? Meanwhile, Police Captain Mahoney, assigned men to drag the drainage canals near Elsie's home on the 12th of April, and again on the 15th of April. In several instances, a child was found in a camp who did resemble Elsie, just that Frankie was even momentarily certain it was his daughter. He said, that's my daughter. Like, no, this is our little...
What are you doing?
Our little Betty. And it would take some time to convince him it was a mistake. As late as April 24th, when a little girl somewhat answering Elsie's description was found in a gypsy camp near 18th and South Halstead Streets, Frank fell to his knees and prayed, "Please
Damn.
let this be my little girl."
Imagine thinking it is like 7 times
Right.
and not being well.
Got to give up after a while, right? It is good. Let's go home.
All
Fuck.
right, geez, sick of this. The reason for her capture was attributed by police to the natural love of the wandering people for blue-eyed, yellow-haired children.
Really?
Elsie
That's
was
like a thing back then?
I guess Elsie was consistently described as small with light golden hair and blue eyes, wearing a red one-piece dress, lace shoes with laces rather than buttons, and black stockings. The little girl is described as having long, curly golden hair, blue eyes, and pink, chubby cheeks with a prominent dimple in each.
Oh, man.
At the time she disappeared,
So
she
it
wore
was
a
a-
red hat and a red dress.
It was a blonde hair Darla.
Right. Black stockings and high-top black boots. Chicago Daily News, April 12th, 1911. She was a very pretty child, and passing strangers often stopped to pass admiring comment upon her, which said the Rockford Daily Gazette, April 21st of 1911. So, okay, a beautiful little baby girl.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, come on. 4 years old. All children are beautiful
Right.
at 4 years old.
Well, I don't know.
Right.
That's
Yes,
easy.
Damn! Damn! April 17th, Captain Mahoney received an anonymous phone tip that a child answering Elsie's description had been seen accompanying a man to Western Springs, Illinois. It was a hotel. Again, detectives dispatched to the hotel and found nothing.
Wow.
Now in Sycamore, Illinois, Police Chief Ogden accompanied Frank to investigate gypsy wagons at Cherry Valley, but found no child even remotely resembling Elsie. Meanwhile, Hinman Street Police fielded reporters' questions about a $500, nearly $13,000 in 2015, a $500 ransom that was received by Carolina. They denied official knowledge of this communication, but admitted it could be true.
Yeah, we know it could be. April 20th, neighbor saw Frank Jr., age 6, lugging a pick and shovel out into South Troy Street and start digging. Uh-oh. Upon inquiry, Frank had said there had been a lot of construction on the street the day Elsie disappeared, and he had heard his parents discussing the possibility that she had fallen into a hole. As she struggled to climb out, she might have been buried under fallen sand and gravel.
Where was this hole?
Workers still fixing the street said that it was possible, but they would have noticed immediately, right? Meanwhile, people in the West End and a woman in Kings, Illinois reported sightings of light-skinned girls traveling with gypsies. So which is it? What's going on
Come
here?
on. Second week of Elsie's disappearance, Lillian Wolfe, age 11, came forward to offer assistance. Wolfe herself had been the subject of a similar manhunt 4 years earlier. She had been stolen by gypsies and held for 6 days, working as a beggar, until discovered walking behind a gypsy wagon by a farmer outside Momence, Illinois. She provided details of her experience of the culture's typical behavior and volunteered to lead a rescue party. One of the men who had kidnapped Lillian suggested asking Elijah George, who, he said, was king of the gypsy.
Also, they're even getting help from the guys that
Right.
kidnapped Lillian, huh?
Like, you might want to talk to Elijah, bud.
Right. Elijah George was found in Argyle, Wisconsin, and was brought to Joliet, but failed to get the desired information and was released. At that point, Inspector Healy again ordered the drainage canal dragged, along with the search of all wells and other places where Elsie could have fallen. April 22nd, Governor Deneen released a front-page statement to the Chicago American calling on every person to aid in the search. Also, April 22nd, John Mutz, the town marshal for Trevor, Wisconsin, received a phone call regarding a blonde child in a nearby gypsy camp. Mutz, along with saloon keeper Carl Sedenik of Lyons, Illinois, met with the girl, and Sedenik said he was able to speak with her and check and verify that she was Elsie. A Miss Alice Gold of nearby McHenry also identified the child as Elsie and said the gypsies had attempted to steal other children in the area.
By the 23rd of April, Lieutenant John Costello of the Hinman Street Station told reporters that every kidnapping clue had been exhausted. He was sure Elsie had been attacked and mistreated, was now dead, and her body hidden in the cellar of an empty house or deserted barn in God knows where.
Right.
He brought detectives to begin investigating empty buildings, barns, sheds, elevators, catch basins, and basements on or near South Albany Avenue. Several of the detectives brought spades, planning to dig in every plot of earth that appeared to have been recently disturbed. Inspector Healy joined in the search along with Detectives Perry and Egan.
So what's happened with this
Right.
this dude that spoke with the girl in Czech?
Well,
Okay.
they were just saying whatever.
At the same time, Costello sent 2 officers to the outskirts of the city on a lead which he had received by telephone but refused to reveal to reporters. Captain Stephen Wood of the Detective Bureau was having all gypsy wagons followed and wrote to every police official in the vicinity of Belvedere, Rockville, and Janesville,
All right.
which is in Wisconsin, to be on the lookout. However, He, too, was now certain Elsie was either being held for ransom, had been in an accident, and was either dead or in some hospital, unable to speak, or had been slain by some degenerate from one of the shanties in the alley near her home. Oh, so there's shanties that they know about, and they're still just letting her roam around, huh?
Oh, jeez. That's even worse.
Right. Also, the 23rd, a neighbor told police that she had last seen Elsie around 11 a.m. on the morning she disappeared, still with the organ grinder, and engaged in conversation with a man on the opposite side of the street, whom the neighbor did not know.
I mean, you're going to tell me all these kids play with each other all day, every day. They're just going to leave her there and be like, oh, come on, let's go. Let's go play.
Maybe they've done it 100 times.
Right. The following day, Chicago Daily News devoted a full column to the search, calling it one of the most extensive and far-reaching quests ever made for a missing child, quote, unquote. 20 police officers and 100 volunteers were involved in Lieutenant Costello's search, covering a radius about a mile from the Paroubek home. It was judged to be one of the most remarkable investigations of its kind because of the intense public interest, but also due to the huge number of child volunteers.
Oh, hey, look at that.
Oh, they didn't care about her that day, huh? Many described themselves not just as casual acquaintances or playmates, but as friends of Elsie. Yeah, I played with her, but she wasn't no near my friend. I played with her. I was just an acquaintance. We played from afar. When we played tag, I never tagged her.
When we played freeze tag, that bitch was froze.
Right. And when I had to look for her in hide and seek, I didn't look.
I saw her. I didn't tell her, though.
Just kept on walking.
Fucking kids.
These children offered to look into out-of-the-way places for Elsie, or evidence leading to her whereabouts. They're like, we'll get in the tiniest spots that you guys can't.
April 29th, Inspector Healy sent a detective to Zion City, Illinois, in response to a long-distance phone tip from the Zion County City Deputy Sheriff. Again, a child resembling Elsie was seen in a gypsy camp, and again, the child was found to be a gypsy.
Right.
April 30th, the superintendent of schools, Mrs. Ella Flagg Young, had requested that all school children in the Chicago area organize neighborhood searches during spring break. Like, what?
Right.
Giving us homework?
Man.
Meanwhile, Frank, in desperation, consulted a psychic who said that Elsie was in Argo, Wisconsin.
So he turned to the gypsies that he's blaming for taking his daughter to help them.
Maybe this one's a Jamaican one. Call me now. The psychic said that Elsie was in Argo, Wisconsin, which she possibly meant to say Argyle, Wisconsin, because there is no Argo, Wisconsin. Didn't they go to Argyle already, I thought?
Chicago politician Charles Vopika sent officers to the area she indicated, but to no avail.
Of course.
The search jumped from Illinois to Wisconsin, from Wisconsin to Minnesota, and then back again to Illinois with no luck. A few days after Elsie's disappearance, Frank began to receive anonymous, insulting letters.
What the hell?
They were all written in English, which he could not read. So he asked neighbors to translate. The letters claimed that Elsie was hidden away by someone who hated the Paroubeks, accusing them of mistreating her.
Well, I mean, they didn't just let her roam the streets at 4 years old.
Frank was so infuriated by the accusation that he burned the letters.
Can't burn evidence.
Nonetheless, Detectives Zahur and Zalaski attempted to follow up on this lead.
Zahur and Zalaski, huh?
Maybe the mom was like
I think
dink.
the mom did something, dude.
Maybe the mom was a dink, and the dad's like, what are you talking about? That girl, she's my princess, right? Come home. That's why as soon as he came home from work, he was like,
or the mom's like,
she's like, I don't know, running around the neighborhood. You know that little bitch.
Give a shit about her and probably abuses her.
I don't know where that little bitch is, but her dinner's getting cold.
And didn't really give a shit. Just
Right.
let her run around.
All the
Clearly.
other kids died.
Who knows? Right. Who knows if the mom did something with it? We
Maybe she's
don't
a
even know
freak.
yet. We don't even know yet.
Maybe she had problems.
Well, the Czech community rallied to support the Paroubeks. All Czech-speaking policemen were put into plain clothes and assigned to the investigation. Chicago American revealed that not only Czech speakers were involved in this international squad, but police officers who were Polish, German, Irish, and English were assigned because they each spoke several languages and would be better able to question every man, woman, and child in the camp.
Fantastic.
The
Look at that
women's
shit.
right.
That's the smartest thing I've ever seen.
Right.
Any
Nobody
of
else
these.
does that.
Wow.
The women's auxiliary of the club Bohemia assisted in the search, creating an endless chain letter, which was mailed to all parts of the city with a request for recipients to mail copies to everybody they knew.
So 1911, or around that area, had been pretty populated.
Guarantee there had to be close to 1 million in Chicago already. 1910 was 2.2 million in Chicago, so I'm assuming right about there, right?
2.4.
Perhaps 2.4 in 1914.
So we're saying 2.3.
Right. It was the world's 6th largest city at that
Oh,
point.
so pretty populated.
Yeah.
Okay. Various Czech American politicians became involved as well. The Bohemian Charitable Association conferred with Mayor Carter Harrison Jr. on the 22nd of April, then announced they would offer a reward of $500, nearly $13,000 today. And however much more could be raised, they'll give it to him as well.
Good for them.
Mayor Harrison contributed $25.
Hey, good for you, Mayor.
$600 today. And he sent out a special police squad from City Hall. Oh, look at that. And he gets man hours.
Right.
They give you $25 and man hours. The detachment also operated out of the Lawndale Avenue station in cooperation with the Hinman Street Police. Anton Cermak, then a Chicago alderman, said that if little Miss Paroubek were not found by the time of the next city council meeting, May 1st, he would call upon the city council to offer an even larger reward. At that time, state laws did not allow the offering of a reward for the apprehension of kidnappers, as it did for murderers. Why? That's pretty messed up.
The state couldn't offer a reward.
Right. April 26, Governor Deneen said he planned to ask the legislature to revise the statutes so that a reward could be offered by the state of Illinois in addition to the personal reward fund.
Hey, good for them. They're
Right.
all out for this shit.
They're like, wait a
huh?
minute, wait. Really? Like, oh, yeah, man, there's a lot of kidnapping.
Right.
Shit, we'd be broke.
Right. Judge Adolph, Jay Sabath, held several interviews with Elsie's family and also contributed $25. By May 2nd, he had increased his contribution to $100, which is about $2,500 in 2015. So close to $3,000 now. And arranged meetings with Czech societies to find ways to increase the fund. Many sightings of girls in a red dress living in a gypsy camp were phoned in to police. Like she'd still be wearing the same dress.
Right, I don't think so.
And followed up on.
Maybe.
By May 1st, police had all but abandoned the idea that she had been stolen by gypsies and were returning to their efforts to search in wells and dragging canals. Judge Sabath objected, saying that the police hunt was becoming listless because Elsie's parents were poor. He was being swamped with mail, most of it containing contributions to the reward fund from all over the country, and increased his personal contribution to $100 as well. Dude, right now the reward's up to like, what, 40, 50 grand?
Dude, it's amazing. Among the letters was one from Dr. G.T. Screeton of Carlisle, Arkansas, which read in pot, Dear Judge, in relation to the strange disappearance of Elsie Paroubek, I will say that a band of 40 gypsy men and 4 gypsy women with 18 children ranging in age from 3 months to 18 years were seen in a Union Station at Little Rock, Arkansas last week. All these children looked as if they were not of gypsy parentage, quote, end quote.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Detectives Zahur and Zalaski saw a man residing near Madison and Roby Streets. The suspected author of the anonymous threatening letters Frank had received, Lieutenant Costello, supported by Inspector Healy, flatly declared, Elsie Paroubek fell into the drainage canal from the Kedzie Avenue Bridge or near it. She was not murdered. How'd you know? They believe the author of the letters have witnessed this. Oh.
Okay. By May 7th, 25 gypsy bands had been searched and many false leads followed. Police Captain Mahoney announced his belief that Elsie was dead and that police would continue to search for her body. Jeez. Also on May 7th, Judge Sabath ordered an investigation of Frank and Carolina themselves in search of anything in their past that might have caused someone to kidnap Elsie. Or how about them? Dude, that's the Chicago Drainage Canal?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, there's not even railings or nothing.
Right. 2 days later, on the 9th of May, 1911, electrical engineer George T. Scully and other employees of the Lockport Power Plant near Juliet, 35 miles outside of Chicago, saw a body floating in the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal.
Uh-oh.
At first, they thought it was an animal from one of the nearby farms, but 3 hours later, realizing it was a human being, sent out a boat to bring it to ashore.
3 hours later, was it just like rocking back and forth against the waves, pushing it on the rocks for 3 hours or something, dude?
Wow.
Jeez.
Wow. A local undertaker, William Goodale, examined the body, said that it appeared to fit Miss Paroubek's description. The description tallied to the shade of the hair and the texture of the stockings, and the stuff and the tint of the dress of little Elsie, quote, end quote. He thought the body had been in the water for several weeks, although only slightly decomposed. Another report indicated that her body was badly decomposed, but there were no marks of violence on her body. Man.
Goodale notified Chicago authorities, who sent Police Lieutenant Costello to the Paroubek home. Carolina cried, Mi dra dite! I guess it means my dear child in Czech, or whatever they spoke. and begged to be told Elsie was alive. Frank was taken to the Goodell funeral home at midnight. He said the clothes look like Elsie's, but the face, I can't recognize it. Her mother alone can tell. Another newspaper reported to Frank immediately said, "That's Elsie," and began to cry.
So they don't know again.
Well, he thought another girl was the kid.
Right. Carolina arrived at the funeral home by trolley car the following morning and positively identified Elsie, saying, "It's you, my darling. Thank God we found you, and you're not in the hands of the gypsies."
Well, she was in the hands of the gypsies. She'd be alive, maybe.
Oh,
What in
my.
the
Something's
fuck?
happened here, man. For the next hour, she paced or sat nervously in an adjoining room with Frank holding her hands, weeping and praying. Goodell, who had kept track of the disappearance in the papers, made this statement to the police. The body appears to have been in the water for about a month, which would tally with the date of Elsie's disappearance. The child, when she left home, was without hat, and her clothing tallies in every respect that found on the dead body. There was no ring or other ornament, and in that respect the descriptions correspond. Excepting only as to the color of the eyes, which cannot be clearly observed as to color, the descriptions are identical.
Right. Her eyes probably
Right.
were like foggy, and I would assume, right?
Right.
Arrangements were quickly made for an inquest. The jury consisted of F.W. Why is there a jury? The jury consisted of F.W. Worst, Christian Rod Cheerio, John A. Walter, William Wooddale, Edwin Murray, and Patrick O'Brien. Coroner William Wunderlich of Will County officiated.
Okay.
As the post-mortem examination began, Frank was the first witness. Disregarding questions put to him by the coroner, Frank plunged into charges his daughter had been murdered. Through a translator, he asserted, "I am sure the gypsies stole my girl, and then when they knew we were after them, they killed her and threw her into the canal."
Oh. At this time, Carolina ran from the funeral parlor screaming, "My Elsie is dead. She was murdered. Murdered." Her husband and Detective Zelaski tried to calm her down, but in her extreme distress, she began running up and down the street. And then she drew a crowd of curious onlookers after this. She insisted she had known for 3 weeks that the gypsies had killed her daughter Elsie. Frank consoled her and assisted her boarding a trolley car for home. He's like, "Just go home."
Get the hell out of here. Meanwhile, the coroner said this case has attracted such attention that a minute examination will be made. We'll be content with no perfunctory inquest such as this. The jury will refuse to state its convictions, for it has none,
Right.
until after the autopsy has been held. We want the stomach of the little girl examined and the lungs as well. The father charges murder. It is certainly possible that he is right.
All right. They never know.
2 physicians, E.A. Kingston and W.R. Paddock, confirmed that there was no water in her lungs, so she had not drowned. Oh. Kingston said she had been attacked, often a euphemism for rape back in those days, and murdered before her body was thrown into the water.
What the hell?
Paddock said there was every evidence she had been wounded before being killed. Oh, my.
Oh, my.
This is like one turn after another, dude.
Oh, geez, bad enough that she fell off the side of that thing with no railings.
She didn't fall.
Right.
Clearly. I would say it would have been bad enough, right?
Son of a bitch.
Jeez.
Man.
So
Lieutenant.
now you got to kind of look at the guys, or the
Right.
dad now,
Or something.
and the mom. Oh, I knew she'd been murdered. Why aren't they looking into them? If it was nowadays, you're damn sure they'd be the first suspects.
I'm pretty sure that was like a tight-knit community. Everybody knew everybody.
I mean,
But then nobody questioned, I mean, what happened to the other kids?
right. What happened to the Oregon guy?
Yeah,
They ever questioned him?
They never found this guy? Yeah, how you not question the Oregon guy? You'd be like, dude, how many kids I see every day?
Well, if he was still around doing his Oregon thing, I would assume he's not guilty.
Yeah, what if he's not? Right?
I'm saying that would be kind of weird. You think it would have been mentioned?
He's like, no, dude, funny thing is, on that very day, I decided to hang it up.
Right, like I was done. That was my last day.
Coincidence, man. Coincidence. Lieutenant Costello later told the press that she had been mistreated, seeming to indicate this meant her death was not the work of gypsies.
Why, gypsies wouldn't have mistreated her?
I guess not.
Or maybe they didn't. Why? Well, right. Gypsies don't kill.
Right.
They want to, like, slave these kids out.
All right. And
I mean-
Inspector Healy also added, he says, there seems to be no doubt that she was abused in the most fiendish way. And the fact established the case is much simplified for the police. Oh, how is it? You still don't know. How is it much simplified? You would have gladly accepted her falling into the water. You want to leave it at that.
Right.
Damn, case closed.
And the only reason why they even did that in depth of an autopsy is
'Cause there's
because
so
the
much-
guys,
yeah.
there's so much publicity on
He's
it.
like, normally I just call it a day,
Right.
but let's dig in this a little deeper. And the police chief's like, no.
Also, this next thing, they couldn't see that when they pulled her from the water.
Right. But they also found deep cuts on the left side of her face.
Didn't the one guy said that she appeared to be
Right, unharmed.
unharmed? What the hell is these guys doing?
Although these men reported blue marks on the throat as though the victim had been choked.
Wow.
Another examination by doctors E.R. LeCount and Warren H. Hunter of the coroner's office revealed that Elsie had been suffocated, not strangled, and there were no distinct marks of violence on the body at all.
So which is it? She has cut on her face. She's been stroked.
Wait a minute
Choked,
here.
strangled, smothered.
Right.
What in the world? Despite this, newspaper headlines reporting the coroner's findings continued to report Elsie was strangled. The official cause of death was marked unknown. Coroner Peter Hoffman concurred with Mrs. Paroubek as to the probable circumstances of Elsie's death. It is our belief that the abductor of the child suffocated her to death, possibly by putting a hand over her mouth. The coroner's report recommended that officials continue to investigate. Inspector Healy immediately detailed detectives to find out exactly what had happened. He told the Chicago Inter-Ocean, "I have 40 detectives at work today on the theory that the criminals lived in the neighborhood of the Paroubek home. We're investigating every incident of the lives of the Paroubeks since they came to Chicago in order to trace a possible enemy. It will surprise me if the criminals are not arrested within a week."
Really? To the Chicago Tribune, he also stated, "We have one or two theories, but nothing specific enough to even talk about. So why'd you even say it?
All right.
I intend to place more men on this case tomorrow." Lieutenant Costello returned to investigating anonymous letters. Meanwhile, the New York Times reported Hoffman's and Paroubek's theory as fact. They're like, "Nah, you see that kid in
Chicago?
in Illinois that got strangled?"
Right. Strangled and abused.
Right. Yeah, they're like, them damn Midwesterns.
Right. We always knew Chicago was the toilet of America.
On the evening, May 9th, Carolina was calmer and gave an interview upon returning home. Surrounded by friends and neighbors, she told reporters, "Before the doctors found that Elsie's lungs were free from water and discovered reasons for believing she had been strangled, I knew she had been murdered. A picture of the crime has been in my mind since the second week of her disappearance, and I'm convinced that when the truth is known, as it surely will be, it will be shown that she was choked to death a week from April 8th, when she was kidnapped on her way to visit her auntie." Carolina called upon authorities to find and punish the killers. You go find those
Oddly specific
bastards.
there,
Right.
Carolina.
She'd be like, oh my.
Or Carolina, whatever the hell your name is. Following the inquest, Elsie's body was brought home. Her Uncle Frank, well, she got a Daddy Frank and her Uncle Frank, huh?
Damn.
Her Uncle Frank took charge of the funeral arrangements. Carolina told Judge Sabat that the search had exhausted the family's savings and they had no money to bury her.
Thousands of dollars were raised.
Yeah, to find the person, whoever did it to her.
Right. Where'd all that money go?
All right. Judge Sabath gave her a check for $25, promising to raise more funds. He already raised it. Friends and family members continued to collect money for the Paroubek Fund. Mrs. Sophie Jo Haynes raised over $50 by giving a benefit party and soliciting donations from bohemians on the West Coast. For you, $50. That's all you can muster, huh?
All right. Elsie's funeral was held at 10 a.m., May 12th, 1911, on the lawn of the Paroubek's home and attended by between 2,000 to 3,000 people.
Wow.
Chicago Inter-Ocean newspaper gave the number of attendees as 5,000.
Well,
people.
inflating.
They added those two together. It was
Right.
like, yeah, how about that?
2,000 or 3,000 plus.
That sounds better. Hours before the ceremony, Albany Avenue in the Paroubek backyard, along with the balconies and porches of nearby houses, were filled with mourners. There was no hall in the neighborhood large enough to hold them all.
Damn, through a makeshift block party, huh?
Right. Frank had been offered a use of that hall, but indicated the huge gathering and said, "They have to come and say goodbye to my Elsie. Don't let them be disappointed." Reserved from Hinman Street Station were called in to keep order and prevent the crowd from breaking down the fence. Damn.
The hell, it's a funeral. Why are they breaking down
Right.
fences? Elsie's white coffin rested on two brass stands surrounded by lilies of the valley, roses, and carnations sent by Mayor Harrison, Judge Sabath, and other city officials. Lilies of the valley, ironic,
Right.
because they have little red berries on them that literally poison kids
Right.
all the time.
All the time.
So whatever, I guess. I don't know why it's ironic, but I'm just pointing it out. 8 little girls dressed in all white, including Josie Trampoda and her sister Mary, brought out huge sprays of lilies and roses and encircled the bier. Someone brought 2 chairs out of the Paroubek home, sat them near the casket, and laid a board across them to hold the hundreds of floral offerings. Carolina was seated at the head of the coffin while Frank and the other children stood nearby.
Well, the Paroubeks were not Catholic, but freethinkers. There were no prayers. Service was read by Rudolf Yamir Senka, editor of the Bohemian Chicago Daily Snatched. He spoke of the need to cooperate with police to find Elsie's killers. As the undertaker went to lift the coffin into the hearse, Carolina begged him to open it one last time so she could see Elsie's face. But her relatives persuaded her not to do this. Just let her go.
Yeah, I don't think you want to see her face.
Right. Most of the attendees followed Elsie's casket to Bohemian National Cemetery, where Senka gave another address. Her daddy Frank was quoted by saying, "My little girl is at rest. Nothing matters to her now, but I shall never rest until I see her murderers paying the penalties for taking her life."
Police Chief John McWeeny vowed to devote the entire Chicago police force to finding the killer. Alderman Cermak asked Governor Deneen to increase the reward by $200 as is possible under the statutes. Well, yeah, now it's murder officially, right? So you can get some rewards. Cermak said, "I will also ask the governor to issue a proclamation calling upon all the people of the state to interest themselves in this case in order that her murderer be apprehended." Coroner Peter Hoffman started a public reward fund, contributing $25 himself. Considering where Elsie was found, detectives suspected the actual killer might be Joseph Canesti. According to the Rockford Republic, Canesti was definitely identified as the killer by detectives under the command of Police Captain Wood.
Okay. Who?
Why don't these guys have pages?
Joseph Canesti?
That would be a killer of others, right?
Okay, so Joseph was described as a bearded bohemian and a hermit peddler. He was said to have frequently enticed little girls to his hut by the drainage canal. What was up with this drainage canal? Even the cops were like, "Let's search the drainage canal." This guy, they knew this guy was there.
Sure, it's not the first time bodies have been thrown in the drainage canal.
This is on West 33rd Street and South Kedzie Avenue, about a mile and a half from Elsie's home.
Jeez.
And he had been frequently seen near the Paroubek's home. Searching the shack, detectives found a green hair ribbon, which they intended to take to Carolina for identification, along with indications of a small hole dug in the ground and an old hemp sack, which might have contained the body. The owner of the shack, Mrs. David Shaughnessy, advised police that she had complained to Canesti about his bringing children around the house. "I told him stop bringing those damn children around the house." And she was like, "So I evicted him on the 9th of May. Canesti threw himself in front of a train on the 10th of May. 5 days later, he was cleared of any wrongdoing.
Oh, damn.
Really?
Okay, well, he was just weird.
So what happened 5 days later? They didn't find anything? Any evidence?
I guess not.
So he just killed himself. He's like, "Oh, shit. They know." What do they know?
Yeah, but they found her.
At the...
I know, but what date?
May 9th?
May 9th. So now it's all out there.
Right, and the next
He
day
gets evicted
killed
May
himself.
9th, and then he throws himself in front of a train on May 10th.
Oh, shit. Did he throw himself in front
And
of the train?
Then 5 days later, he was cleared of any wrongdoing?
Did he throw himself in front of the train?
Well, we don't know.
Was it black hands involved?
Could have been, right. May 13th, the body of a well-dressed man was found in the canal at Willow Springs, some 20 miles from Lockport and 14 miles from Albany Avenue. He had no identification, only a Catholic holy card with a prayer in Polish with the words Sig Hoff written on it. Detectives believe this man also may have had some connection with Elsie's death. An anonymous letter was said to have been received by the detectives. The writer described having seen a little girl walking along the canal with a young man on the day Elsie was disappeared. The same day, another loner living in a shack by the canal was identified as possible person of interest. Mr. Kinsella, described as a religious enthusiast, was supposed to be demented.
Okay.
When he saw detectives Gormley, Sladd, and Froelich approaching his home, he took off running, making a move as if to draw a revolver.
Oh, man.
Calling out that they only wanted to question him, the officers fired their weapons in the air. After a 3-mile chase through gullies and underbrush, Kinsella escaped into the forest. What the hell did this guy do?
I think he was just, probably
Well, they all said that.
He's
Or
inbred.
They just said that he
weird motherfucker.
supposed to be demented, so
Right.
he's crazy already.
He's like, "Oh, damn, they're finally coming after
Finally,
me.
I knew it. I told you guys.
Told you sons of bitches."
Oh,
Right.
I don't even know what's going on with this case no more.
I don't know
man.
anymore. That's just something's weird. 15th of May. Now we're 6 days after.
5 days after
Right.
the dude killed himself, 3 days after the funeral.
Oh, man. Frank told police he'd spoken to a man who he did not know, and he told him he had seen Elsie late in the afternoon of the of April 8th.
So she disappeared on the 1st or 2nd, right?
Right. On the 15th of May, Frank told police he had spoken to a man who he did not know, and the man told him that he had seen Elsie late the afternoon of the 8th of April on Kedzie Avenue, south of 28th Street. That's pretty specific.
Right.
Long after she was supposed to have been taken by the Gypsies. Long after.
A week, yeah.
Lieutenant Costello assigned detectives to find the man. The previous reported sighting of Elsie had her walking toward the canal on South Torrey Street, a half block south of her auntie's house, which makes more sense. Did they go that far all the time? I mean, were they allowed to just go blocks and blocks?
Apparently, this little 4-year-old was just allowed to do whatever the hell she wanted.
If the unknown man told the truth, Elsie was only 3 blocks away from a bridge. Despite the coroner's findings, Lieutenant Costello had become convinced that Elsie's death was an accident, and she had simply fallen into the canal. He's like, nah. Although Inspector Healy had the canal's drainage ditches dragged repeatedly during the search. Right. Yeah, they would have found it.
Right. Coroner Hoffman continued to insist Elsie was murdered. Apparently, some confusion had occurred during initial examinations. The first physician, which was probably Dr. Kingston, he examined Elsie on the night of May 9th, told Lieutenant Costello that she had drowned with no marks of abuse, and Costello had repeated this when he spoke to the family.
Right.
However, the following day, the same physician's autopsy findings concluded Elsie had not drowned and that she appeared to have been suffocated.
So what do you mean? Maybe when he just glanced at her.
Oh,
he was like, oh, this
wrong.
is, we just got some decomposition here. And then he looked closer and he's like, oh, right. That's scratches.
Something. Oh, my. What the hell?
Detectives surrounded a house near Madison and Roby Streets. And they also threw a dragnet over the southwestern side of town for a former boarder in the Paroubek home.
Oh, so the Paroubeks are taking in random guys, huh?
They continued to search for an anonymous writer of the nasty letters received by Frank. Apparently, neither the boarder, the writer, or the unknown man who had spoken to Frank were ever found.
Wow.
2 years later, on the anniversary of Elsie's funeral, Frank died.
Wow.
He was 45 years old. He probably drank himself to death, I bet, dude. Carolina lived until December 9th, 1927. Both are buried with Elsie in Bohemian National Cemetery. So nothing...
Although Elsie's mysterious disappearance and death were once the subject of intense police investigation and journalistic focus, her story faded into obscurity until the death of Henry Darger in 1973. Michael Bonesteel, an art historian examining Darger's work, found repeated reference to Darger's Story of the Vivian Girls novel to Annie Ehrenberg, leader of a child slave rebellion, and to an inspirational picture of her that had been lost. Miss Ehrenberg had met a shocking yet heroic death at the hands of her captors. The murder is described in detail and is nothing like Elsie's death.
Right. Okay. So what's that do with anything?
What the hell's got to do with anything?
Well, according to his diary, Darger really had lost a picture of a little girl and was desperate to get it back or to replace it. He did not give the name, but said it had appeared in the Chicago Daily Noise on May or June or July of 1911. Bonesteel's search in the newspaper archives revealed Elsie Paroubek and her story. A portrait of Annie Ehrenberg by Darger shows a somewhat older blonde-haired girl. Her hair ribbon and the distinctive collar of her dress are similar to Elsie's in the photograph. In the novel, Darger describes children who are kidnapped and mistreated by adults, while the heroic little Vivians, Annie Ehrenberg, and others form rescue squads to save them. Okay, so they just make up like a little fairy tale about missing children?
Posthumously discovered fantasy novels. They'd never published this.
Right.
So they're trying to say that I don't get it. Are they trying to say that just he was inspired by her?
Right.
Because he saw her picture and then made up a story of the Vivian girls rescuing kidnapped children and stuff, child slaves and stuff.
Right.
Okay, well, good for him, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Still, the answer's nothing. Nothing has been answered. Did she die? This Lieutenant Costello dude thinks she didn't die and just fell off the canal. The other guys think she did die and was abused. And what in the world is happening here?
I mean...
So nobody knows to this day what the hell really happened to this girl.
Nope.
Wow.
Nothing.
Holy shit.
How do you not know?
What is up with this stuff?
Did things happen?
That whole story was just all over the place. This happened, and this happened. Oh, this happened. And you got 8 different doctors saying different things that all examine her body. How are these people even coroners and shit? If one's saying, well, no, she was not harmed. She was, she drowned. Well, no, she had no water in her lungs, and she had slash marks on her face.
Not one kid in the neighborhood seen anything.
And near the drainage canal, you would think nobody during the day would have seen a little-ass kid walking along it.
4 years old.
And why aren't these parents charged? What kind of person lets a 4-year-old just wander around anyways?
Right.
And I figured she might have just went to her friends to stay the night.
Not to mention, they have to have the knowledge that, hey, 3 other children have been killed in this house, or have died.
Right, even that. Right, how the other 3 children die.
Right.
Oh, no. I don't know. Wow. That was.
And the mom didn't seem worried to go in bed, but once Dad came home from work,
not only that,
he was outraged.
I know she was murdered 1 week after she was. Wow.
And no evidence. Usually there's evidence. No evidence of anything.
Nothing. Nothing. Wow. I don't know. What do you guys think? maindangpodcast@gmail.com. Tell us what you made of this story and what you think actually happened.
I think this story was
fall off the canal.
Fuckery.
She get murdered. Is her mom involved? Or what the hell's going on here? Because I don't know.
And where's this, the organ grinder never been mentioned again.
Organ grinder not mentioned. The guy just kills himself one day after the body was found, throws himself in front of a train, but then cleared of wrongdoing, apparently.
And then that living drifter guy that was living with them couldn't be found.
That guy, right. And then the other guy that came up to Frank and told him,
right.
Just random guy comes up to you like, hey, I think I saw your daughter.
Right.
And the cops never question him.
Then that guy that they found dead on the train tracks or whatever it was.
That was the guy that threw himself in front of the train.
Yeah. No, there was other guy that they found.
No, they found him in the canal, floating.
Yeah. Well-dressed.
And they say he could possibly have a connection. What the fuck is this connection?
Right.
Wow. All right.
Some more of this?
Well, I don't think so.
What's going on?
What is known is known, I guess.
Was it the Black Hand? No, because they weren't taking children.
Maybe. Did they? What? They... So,
well, the dad
they
said
investigated
he got letters saying that the people, whoever it was, didn't like their family.
Didn't like their family because they mistreated her. That's what he said.
So maybe the mom was doing things, and like I said, he didn't know. As soon as he came home from work, he was like, "What?" Went to the police.
Maybe he did it.
She didn't seem.
Maybe he did it. Sent the letters because he knew the mom was mistreating her,
right?
And tried to make her feel bad, but ended up accidentally killing her or something.
He knew it was like, not again. He came home and he's like, "Babe, not again."
Right.
This is the 4th time. I'm sorry.
Right.
You said you'd never leave me.
Oh, my.
I won't, you crazy bitch. But we got to think of something now.
Wow, dude.
My poor Elsie.
All right. Well, I guess this is going to do it for us as we sit here scratching our heads and wondering.
I think the mom did it.
Wondering?
I think the mom did it.
I think something happened with something. The family knows something more than they're letting on. That's for sure.
Yeah. Or police or something.
Something happening here. Like I said, let us know what you guys think. bangdangpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know. And that'll do it for us. Patreon.com/bangdang for all of our shows ad-free plus early. At least 2 days early. $2 a month for all that. Video hopefully coming soon. We'll get that together. And go check out Battles of the American Civil War and This Week in Sports History on the Bang Dang Network. And we'll be back next week for hopefully a more conclusive type of story. I don't know. It's weird. This is why true crime is so freaking popular, because who the hell knows what's happening?
This is ridiculous. I just wasted, not wasted, but a good chunk of my time to come to no conclusion. It's like today's movies. Right. All the new movies that come out, they just end out of nowhere. You're like, what? That dude is in the middle of a sentence.
How do you think the Sopranos fans felt?
Seriously, every movie today, there's no ending. Ever.
It just ends, right?
Ends.
That's how lazy writers are. You decide in your mind what happened to them. Right. Fuck you.
All right, and they'll end at the stupidest scenes. Like, they'll just end out of nowhere. He's like,
right.
What?
Brushing his teeth, and that's the end of the movie.
Right.
What the fuck?
Get up in the morning. Yeah. Okay.
All righty then.
All right.
We'll see you next week. We're the Month of Michiganders with
Bang Dang.